I want to talk a bit about something completely different now, because I want to talk about security outside the firewall. We heard a lot about inside a threat, what's happening inside the perimeter. What I want to talk about a bit is what's going on out there in the internet. And the main reason of that is, behind that, is that the way we are interacting with our customers, those people who buy our products, that buy our services, these days is digital, right? We're leveraging digital channels. Those digital channels is the web, it's mobile apps, it's social media. And when you think about how customers interact, if you think about how you yourself are interacting with products, you go online. I mean, you hardly book a hotel without checking TripAdvisor, right? You hardly buy something on Amazon without checking what other people are saying about it. And all this is how organizations these days do in their business. They have to make sure that they look good out there. And that also means that if you look into your business, you have to make sure that you're looking good out there as well. So when you define yourself, there's you, and you've got your perimeter, and you try to make this all secure and safe and make sure it's all compliant and all that. But at the end of the day, there's the web out there, right? And if you look into your own environment, I mean, think about it, how much of that, of your web properties are hosted on site, and how much of that is somewhere else. And it's getting even worse when you think about social, because you don't own any of the social media platforms, I think, right? Mobile, right? So if you've got a mobile app, do you really know, where this mobile app is? And for all this, there's a rogue piece out there, right? People impersonating that, people, using either your good brand to monetize on, collecting PIIs or phishing, very obvious. But there are other ways of monetizing here, right? I could do typo squad domains of, your business, of your brands, and just host cheap ads there, right? And each time you access it, I get a few P. So there are various ways of monetizing here. So what we see with a lot of our customers is that this enterprise digital footprint is a real challenge in the meantime. Just understanding which kind of digital assets do I own and which digital assets are interacting with my customers. And it's a growing surface. And it's a very uncontrolled growth there. We see a lot of customers where we go and say, OK, make a guess how many websites you think you have. And they say, oh, I think it's about 500. And we find at least twice as much, right? Just out there because marketing decided, oh, we run this campaign and we put up this website. And of course, we collect PII. I mean, who cares? And then it's forgotten. So it's something you still need to defend. And I mean, everybody comes up with their own statistics, right? And if they don't fit, you make them fit. But Verizon, which is kind of a trusted resource, said that still more than 80% of the successful attacks are coming from the outside. But what SANS said is that 74% of the organizations can't really, they can't really identify it. They can't really see where it's coming from. They don't really know what to do. And so it's a real problem, especially because a lot of people don't know what to do about it. I've got an attack surface. It's fine. As long as I control it, as long as it's under my belly, I can do something about it. Next-gen firewall, web application firewall, you name it. But when it's out there on, hosted on Amazon, Rackspace, you name it, what to do about it? And then, of course, once you've figured out, hey, there's this domain that's infringing, my brand, what to do about it? Are you able to do a takedown? Do you know how to get a mobile app out of a store because it's infringing you? That's a real problem behind it. So, a lot of our customers we're talking to, they're using the kill chain because it makes so much sense. And they throw their money on the protective measures. They throw their money on what to do once something happens and the exploitation starts, and so on. But there is kind of a gap. What we tend to not look into is, the first phase, the reconnaissance. And one of those articles that fascinated me more than a year ago is there was an interview with the hacker that hacked the hacking team, right? And what he said is, the first thing I always do is reconnaissance. I try to figure out as much about the person I try to hack as I can. And he found, a help desk system, which was properly patched, some other systems, but they're often properly patched. I mean, he was a bit smarter. He bought a VPN device and found a 0-day, which is not, the usual thing to do, because typically you find the unpatched WordPress server or something like that. But at the end of the day, if you think about the costs, it's like in the software development lifecycle. If you target the problem early enough, you can save a lot of money. Yeah, if you know how your attack surface looks like, what you have to protect, it's easier to protect it. And also, it's quite often good to understand who's attacking you, who's the adversary. So if you already figured out in your SIM system or whatever, this IP address is looking funny. If you could understand what else belongs to this IP address, who's the threat actor behind it, it's so much easier then to defend, right? So, and this is kind of where we are at the moment. So how to defend your web presence, right? So you've got a huge web presence, potentially not. So the question always is, what do I have? And as I said, we typically find a lot of websites people didn't know about. There's a lot of infrastructure behind it which may not be visible. Right? So you've got a website, but then there's a database server behind it. How can we reach that? You use a lot of third-party components. Yeah? And a lot of breaches lately come via third-party components. Why should I try to hack you if you have a third party that is giving you some widget or something on your website, and they don't care about security because it's marketing. Hey, I don't have to look into security. I'm a marketing company. So what? And we had hacks like there was this single sign-on provider for Facebook and so on called Gigya. They've got hacked by the Syrian Electronic Army. And whenever, it was an iframe on the website linking there, and that was then displaying a JavaScript saying you're hacked, right? So it popped up, people saw it, and now I'm hacked, right? So there is, a lot of that is coming via third parties, and we see that a lot with the big guys, the FTSEs, that they have to look into third-party risk, not just from a financial point of view, who's the supplier, but also what's happening on my website. So we look into those websites, and then the question is, what's secure, what's not secure. We had this rush over the last 12 months or so with the SSL certificates. A lot of people were still using SHA-1 certificates until the browser vendor said, no, sorry, we stopped supporting that, and everybody then ran into the problem trying to figure out where am I still using SHA-1. So there's a lot of that going on, and when we think about websites, there's a lot that people see, and they think it's you, but it's not you. Yeah, so you provide somewhere some content, it's generated dynamically, or you've got static websites, and then a lot of third-party stuff comes into it, and that's what gets delivered to the customer. And at some point, somebody may inject something. A very common way, and one of the most common ways is certainly via ads, and I've got a good example about that later. But we had a lot of MongoDB servers, so not web servers, but servers out there in the web that have been held ransom. So a lot of the attackers change their approach and go after that kind of infrastructure. We saw that the U.S. military got hacked by just something that was related to them was not secured, and they kind of found this way into the system without really doing a massive attack against the main website. So because everything is interconnected, and it's not obvious for the consumer, for the customer, what's really you and what's not you, it's quite a dangerous area. Another area that is interesting is certainly the mobile area. So we're just doing a very interesting survey, and Jay was just writing it yesterday, about how people are using their mobile phones. And some of the numbers are still astonishing. So how many people are rooting their phone or jailbreaking the phone because they can? Yeah? How many people are installing stuff on their phones even though they don't really know where it's coming from? But it's just so common, right? I've just found on my son's phone that he's got this alternative provider of iOS apps that are much cheaper than the ones from the Apple iTunes store. And he just doesn't care, right? So, and a lot of people are doing that. So, you think, okay, there are just 7, 8 mobile app stores, so what we're talking about. That's not the case, seriously. So we monitor more than 500 app stores. Yeah, and a lot of them are hosted, of course, in China, right, as you would assume, because it's a different mentality there. They use different kind of payment methods. Of course, they have to have their own stores. Also, because Google pulled out of China, I mean, you don't need to have alternatives. But we've got them all over the place. And you think, why do we have that? I mean, there's Apple, there's Google Play, what else? But think about it. Almost all the big telcos, they have their own store. All the vendors have their own store. So there is this huge ecosystem of mobile app provider. And it's a good way of making money, right? I can ramp up my own website with a store, and I monetize on it by just putting on advertisements on that. Right? So I'm not making money via the apps. I just link back to iTunes, or I link back to some Google store. I make money by some ads that are running on my website. And we've got this one guy we're following. He's got about, we're not scanning all of them, but he's got about 500 stores up there. So he's got this WordPress template. He registers different names, just put them up there. That's how he's monetizing. So, because all those stores are interconnected. Hardly any store really has their own inventory. It's mainly that they link back. But there are some with their own inventory. There's some providers there for inventory, so you can ramp up your own stuff. So there's an ecosystem. And a lot of that is just not really, controlled. So Apple and Google do some checks, but even there you find malware in apps that are hosted there. But I mean, with those stores that have their own inventory, they just don't care. They just want to get content, inventory on their website so they can make more money. And so the question then is, of course, what's out there? If you have your own mobile app, do you know where it's hosted? Do you know which versions are out there? Do you know how many copycat versions are out there, where maybe somebody either created something to collect PII or just, again, advertisement in the app, so they're monetized on that. And what we saw is, stuff like, Super Mario. Even before the app was launched on the Android store, there've been hundreds of versions of it. None been the real one, but Nintendo just thinks it's really good marketing. Right? So it's all over the place. What we also saw is that all the checks, even though Google is one of the better ones and does the better checks, still there are a lot of apps out there with malware infecting the phones. And again, it's all about how do I monetize? It's all about collecting PII, and it's about ads that I click on something. And that's certainly one of the big things we see under cyber criminals. It's all about profiling you and profiling people. And one of the best ways of profiling people certainly is advertisement. Yeah? So they buy ads, they get connections with the ad networks, and they can exactly profile you, and they can say, I want somebody who's between 30 and 50, is using Windows, is using Internet Explorer, is living in Western Europe, has maybe accessed this website and that website, and they get all that data. Social, always interesting, right? We trust everything that's on social. If there's a link on social, we click on it because it's trusted, right? So somebody posted a link, it must be good. Especially when they use URL shorteners, it's all good there. And it's a massive problem in the meantime because there are more than 3 billion people active on social media, and it's growing. And we see that a lot of our customers are actually using social media to interact with their customers. A good example for that was Metrobank, right? Metrobank came out and said, we are, new bank, we are good. And, this guy had a problem with it. And Metrobank came back and said, it's no problem. Just click on this link and we will fix it. I'm not sure if you can see the link. Not really visible, right? But it's metrobankonline.hol.es/metro. Right? So this is a faked account. So somebody went out there, faked a Metrobank Twitter account, and just sent out phishing links. Right? So it's super easy to do that. And a lot of people are just not looking into it. We had that with Apple support a year ago, where out of a sudden there was an Apple support account on Twitter. And it took really, you can get those verified accounts in Twitter where you have this, check mark. Is everybody looking into that when you, trust something on Twitter? If it's really, signed, certified? That wasn't. And people just gave them all the information in the world. Right? It took a while. It's then been certified by Twitter because it was a real one, but it could have been anyone. Just saying, hey, I'm Apple support. Tell me your problems. Click here. Put in your iTunes ID, and it will be all good. So, it's a real problem out there. And then there's certainly rogue. As I said, how to monetize on it. What we saw, for example, is somebody was able to get something on Yahoo ad. Right? So Yahoo is a big ad network, still is. And they posted something on Huffington Post, and there was a special offering of this lovely hotel, superb hotel. Okay, it distributed an Angler exploit kit, but other than that, it was really good. So, we investigated that, and that hotel really exists. They've got a different domain name, but the content is absolutely the same. You've been able to book a room on that. It didn't go anywhere, but they then collected your credit card data as well, if you went all the way through the booking. Or, HSBC had to apologize. In this case, it wasn't really rogue. It was just a forgotten domain. So they had something on their Hong Kong website where they linked through some other website, and people forgotten to renew the domain registration for the website, so a porn network got hold of the domain. So this lovely website was directly linked from the HSBC website. Yeah. And guess what? It's for a retail bank with a lot of customer interaction, it's not the best thing to do. So in general, what we see out there is when you talk about the digital footprint of a company, there's stuff you own, right? And you know about, and that's great. Yeah. Sometimes it's tough to manage because it's all over the place, and you still have to do certain things like there's some compliance checks and so on. But what quite often happens is there is stuff you own but you don't know about because somebody set it up, right? Especially the dear friends from marketing, they just do stuff. And the problem we quite often have when, in corporations and business these days is that IT and IT security is not fast enough for the rest of the business. Right? They have this superb idea how they can, get 2% more revenue, and it has to be done by tomorrow. Then, IT security comes around and says, oh, we have to test it first. Sorry. Right? So what they're doing? They just ask an agencies to do it for them. So we've got all this unknown websites, shadow IT, unknown, which is third-party code that's hosted on your website, and you always have forgotten sites. So there's the unknown piece, and then there's of course rogue. As I said, it's all about money out there. So how can I get money? There's certainly people that do phishing. But that's a tough one, right? So you have to really be really sophisticated. It's much easier just to do cyber squatting. Just register a lot of domains that are typo squat domains from big brands. Put some cheap ads on it and just wait for the end of the month until you get your check. Yeah, and then if somebody threatens you with legally, you may give it up, but maybe not. Right? Let them sue you, and then you go through a process, UDRP process. It is really expensive for the people suing you. Let them do it. Right? And if you lose it, then you give the domain away. So, you know, it's all about money. And believe it or not, I don't want to talk about it too much now because I'm already getting the yellow card, is we look into that. So what we do is we are out there, we are interacting with the internet as a regular user would do. So we touch about 50 million websites a day and crawl them completely. By doing that, we touch about 2.5 billion URLs every day. We have the complete set of whois data, including historical data. We get a lot of passive DNS data into the system so that we can see, you know, what kind of domains getting registered, what kind of web servers get set up out there, what kind of social media profiles or mobile stores are out there. And you know, in here, what we've got at our stand in the corner is, you know, we've got a simple interface to access all that data, like a Google search interface. It's called Passive Total, so you can come and we can show it to you, or you just go on passivetotal.org and register an account for free where you can do a certain amount of queries per day. But there you can see that, you know, you type in an IP address and we can tell you which you know, websites are hosted on it, which technology is used, who owns that, and if there's some malicious history behind a certain IP or website on it.